people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective.
Is that true? Is that the biggest pipeline?
By the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center.
Y'all got a lot of issues to get through, but y'all spent goddamn 20 minutes on January 6th. How many more times are we going to talk about January 6th? Like, you're saying you have so many more issues to get to, but we literally wasted so much time on J6, on Trump's lawsuits and what he has coming up. Like, I don't know. But I do think Kamala started very uneasy, I would say is the right word. Like, she didn't look like that confident, and the way she was speaking, it was like choppy and felt very scripted. But I think particularly after the question on abortion, she got in her bag, for lack of a better term. She got a lot more comfortable after that question. I would have liked to hear less about, Trump's lawsuits. We've all know what's going on with his lawsuits, and he's a convicted felon, and then he has a court date coming up. We all know that. We all saw January 6th. There's no need to continue talking about this, man. Or, I mean, if you're going to mention it, if something relevant has occurred since then, cool. We can mention that, but to spend like 20 minutes on it when the biggest issue right now is, the economy. I think pretty much if you're American, no matter where you live, like, you're being affected by the economy in some way. I think that is a lot more important. And we got maybe 5 to 8 minutes on the economy, when really it should have been a lot more. But HUR did say something in the other stream, the first stream, part 1. He says, like, he said something to the effect of who would base their voting, who they are voting for based off of a debate. And a lot of people, HUR is the answer to the question. I mean, even me, like, I already know I'm not voting for Trump, but Kamala could convince me to vote if she showed me something. She's not doing interviews or anything, but if Kamala were to show me something in this debate or make a policy proposition, which we got a little bit of policy, we got some economy, some immigration, but if she showed me something, I would consider it. Or even if Trump showed me something, if he came out for student loan forgiveness or something that matters to me, he could possibly, I would consider, the same way with Kamala, I would consider voting for them. So yeah, a lot of people, especially with Kamala, like, we don't really know her. She was vice president. She doesn't do interviews. Like, Trump has sat down with Theo Vaughn, Lex Friedman. Like, he's sitting down with so many different interviewers, podcasts and everything. Kamala's not doing anything. So actually a lot of people could be convinced to vote for Kamala based on what she says in this debate, because this pretty much seems the only venue where she's willing to speak. So to answer HUR's question, I don't know if he's in this new chat, because we got part 1. I changed the thumbnail so we can differentiate part 1 from part 2. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't think it was my Wi-Fi. I think something just happened, because I'm Ethernet cord. I got a hard connection, so there's definitely not the Wi-Fi. But yeah, I think Kamala's doing well so far. I knew she would. I've seen her debate before. So when she's good, she can be really good. She can be like petty, which is good to counter Trump's aggression. But I never expected her to go into a debate and just flop. She did start slow, though. But she's back in her bag. How many debates did they get? Because Biden had the first one. And I would guess this is the second debate. I wonder how many more they have, or do they have one more? Because usually in the election, there's only 3, and we've already had 2. You know, to be fair, the debate had terrible questions. I think there were some good questions. I just think we spent way too much time. There was like we were having like a good string of questions, a lot of good questions in a row. Then we got to the J6 thing, and it's just like burnout. You know what I mean? Shout out to everybody in the chat. So, man, all y'all gotta have to argue. It's really spiel is flawless. Yeah, the Russia got me. I think we back. Economy and healthcare at this point. Yeah, economy and healthcare are the biggest things, dude. Like, we don't care about J6 anymore.
Presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly.
Do you want Ukraine to win this
war?
The
millions.
I don't like that question.
It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more, because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together.
Yeah, very leading
that
question,
war
correct.
would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left, I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III. And
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't really care about foreign policy.
Where is our president?
America first, bro.
We don't even know if he's a president.
America first, then let's get to the foreign policy. That's how I feel, though.
Is he our president?
Unpopular opinion, I know.
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
Your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interest for Ukraine to win this war, yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal, because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I don't care about Ukraine and I don't care about Israel. To be honest, I could care less about what happens to those countries.
Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean.
Well, he was president and Ukraine was still its own independent country now, wasn't it?
Understand why the European allies
Or maybe I'm wrong. Again, foreign policy, I don't care.
Thankful are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris.
Omar said I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm okay with being wrong on foreign policy. I don't care about these countries, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out
Please don't
for
do
our
this
friends
run-on thing.
and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's
Here we go with these
role and
platitudes.
responsibility in
Just
terms
make
of
the point, move
ensuring
on.
that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first
We're doing
hour of
more
this
foreign
debate.
policy than we are
I wanted to
American
move on to
issues.
Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility
Yes,
in
you
the
were
way
Vice
that withdrawal
President.
played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States.
I'm not a fan of time limits.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
But I'm
President
almost
Trump,
like,
your
yo,
response to her
we
saying
got to
we
put
began
the
the
time
negotiations
limits
with the
on their
Taliban.
answers.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, you know, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban.
Yeah,
And I
H.U.
told
to try to
Abdul,
agree.
"Don't do it
Afghanistan,
anymore.
we're
You
talking
do it
about stuff that
anymore, you're
already
gonna have
happened.
problems."
We got to
And
move
he
off
said,
this
"Why do you send me a picture of my
stuff.
house?" I said, "You're going to have to figure that out, Abdul." And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good.
Yo, look, I got to cut this off because, again, this is not important. Kamala Harris mentioned, like, yo, we have nobody in the combat zone, in the war zone, no U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan anymore. Cool, great, that's awesome. So why are we talking about it? I agree with HUR in the chat. Why are we talking about this old stuff? We spent like half the debate on old stuff. January 6th, Afghanistan, Trump's lawsuits. Yeah.
Was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent
Yeah, they need to talk about our
Xi
economy,
and
bro.
her boss are.
Wages.
Thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black.
Oh, she went to an
put out.
HBCU. She went to a
And
black sorority.
I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was a land. He owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times
With Central
calling
Park
for the
5.
execution of 5 young black and Latino.
Here we go. Back on. Okay. Yeah, I agree with SB in the chat. There's so much going on in our country right now. There's so much, and that they're not even getting to it. We spent half an hour on old stuff. We spent 20 minutes on foreign policy.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do. I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other
Here we go
a
with the run
neighbor.
on. Just
We don't want a
make the
leader
point.
who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell
Okay,
me.
she's not really saying anything. Yeah, she. Someone said in the chat she's never said she's black though. She never strategically says it. I mean, it's not. It doesn't matter to me. This whole is she black or I don't care. Like, I will vote for Bernie Sanders, who's white as can be, old as can be, and Jewish. That's who I will vote for. I don't care if she's black or not. It's kind of dumb, and the fact that we're wasting more time on this is insane.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
No, don't respond
This
to
is
it.
the most
Oh my
divisive
gosh.
presidency in the history of our country. There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying.
I just need
our
my crypto to
economy.
go
They
up.
have no
Whoever gonna
idea
make
what
my
a good
crypto go
economy
up.
is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up. Lindsay?
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible.
Here we
One
go with
who
the
brings a sense
platitudes.
of
Oh my gosh, I just
optimism
want to mute this.
about what we can do.
Start with the
instead of always
platitudes.
disparaging the American people.
We must
I
lead,
believe
and we
in
need a
what we can
leader
do
who can do
to
as Americans. And
strengthen our
okay,
small
we got it. We
businesses,
got it.
which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and
I
let's
agree,
compare
though.
the plans.
Yeah, that's
I
what I'm
have a
saying.
plan
Agreed.
to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
As
I
opposed
agree.
to a
though.
conversation that is constantly about belittling
I agree,
and
bro.
name calling. Let's turn
Completely
the
honest.
page.
Yes,
Vice
yeah.
President Harris.
Move on. That's
Thank
what I'm
you. Let's turn to
saying.
policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on.
Agreed.
President
Well,
Trump.
first thing she said, I agree with ever.
To defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay. Thank
you,
That's
Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president
No,
said
no,
something
no,
I
we're
wanna say
moving
to
on.
respond to.
I'm sorry, we're
I
going
just
to
need to
we're moving
respond
on.
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
3rd time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, never going to be great, or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less
Medicare for
money
all.
and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if
Bro, you're running for
we
president, though.
come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have
Like what,
to do that.
though?
And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan
I would
that
like
included
both.
a private insurance
Yeah, I would like
option.
both.
What is your plan
I don't want just
today?
want government-run
Well,
health
first of
care.
all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But
For the past 4
get to
years.
that, Lindsay. I just
Notice
need to
how she
respond to a
even
previous
acknowledges
point
she
that the
flip-flops.
former
Like, well, the
president has
past 4
made.
years
I've
I've been
made
on this
very clear my
side.
position on fracking, and then this business
We're
about
back on
taking everyone's
fracking.
guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away.
Well,
so
what you
stop
got?
with the continuous
What type of
lying
gun
about
you
this
got?
stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions.
Yeah.
I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like?
I don't
Remember when an
actually.
insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump
that's
said
good.
he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president,
that's good,
we
too.
have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice
pass as
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made a
of...
mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't
Sure did.
only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money.
He
and they
should
wanna
talk
have
about how
private.
she
She wants
flip-flopped.
everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of
I saw that
Americans, in
other-
particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
What do y'all think about climate change in
The
the
former president
chat?
had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000
One thing I don't like is the EV
manufacturing
mandates.
jobs
I
while
don't like
have
the
been
EV
Vice President.
mandates.
We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And
Okay,
I'm
talk
also
about it,
proud
though.
to have the endorsement of the United
Let's
Auto
go more
Workers
into
and
that.
Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President
Yeah, let's
Harris,
talk
thank
more
you.
about
It
that.
didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving.
Yeah, a lot of
They're
a lot of
building
industries
big
are laying
auto
off.
plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China.
China, yeah, that's
They're
facts.
building
That's true.
These massive plants, and they think they're going to sell
That
their
is true.
cars into the United States because
Yeah,
of
through Mexico.
these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether
I don't
it's
agree
in
with the tariffs,
Detroit
though.
or South Carolina.
If the
or
Chinese
any
cars
other
are
place.
better,
What they've
we
done,
need to step
the
our game
business
up.
and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from
Ukraine.
all of these different countries.
Did you know you can get an EV from China for about $10,000 to $20,000 US dollars? You can get an EV from China. Because why? Because China has vertical integration. They make everything in-house, including the chips that they need to create these cars. That's why Trump wants to put a tariff on Chinese-made cars. Because if Americans can get an EV for $10,000, $20,000, yes, a lot of other companies are going to lose.
Historic night, this ABC News.
Okay, so it's our commercial anyways. If Americans can get a EV for $10,000 to $20,000, yes, that would kill off a whole bunch of automakers who, again, they mentioned the unions. That means a lot of union workers, they get dumped. We got a $10,000, $15,000 car on the market. That's an EV. That's pretty dang good. Like, I've seen people in other countries, whether they're in Singapore or in other Asian countries, these cars, I think they're called BYD or something like that. They're not like piece of crap cars. You think China, you think poor quality. No, they're legit EVs. They're not super cheap because the car itself is super cheap. They're cheap because China has vertical integration, meaning they make everything in-house. The USA does not have vertical integration with our EVs. We have to get our chips from Asian countries, whether it's Thailand. That's why we fight so hard. Part of the reason we fight so hard for Taiwan. We have to get like these chips and things that are necessary to run electronics from other countries. China has that natural resource there already, or they oversee countries that have it. So they're able to have complete vertical integration with these cars. And that's why Trump wants to put the tariff on Chinese cars. Because if we have a $10,000, $15,000 base model EV, $10,000, $15,000 base model EV, brand new, not used, brand new in America, yes, a lot of companies are going down. That's why he wants to put the tariff on it. That's why he put the tariff on it. He increased the tariff from like a certain percentage. I think the tariff on Chinese cars is like 100% right now. So that's the reason he has a tariff on there. So you could, it's a good and a bad thing, because yes, we want to protect our union workers. Yes, that's going to put a lot of people out of work, and that's going to tank a couple of the automakers in America. If it's Nissan or well, they're not in America, but it's going to tank a lot of automakers if that EV, that Chinese EV, that BYD is proliferated in the USA. You got your car for free? How did you get a car for free? Not only are those Chinese EVs cheap, they're better quality too. Yeah, I think when people hear Chinese products, or you just think a China product, you assume it's going to be crap, because there's a lot of cheap products that come from China, break easily, or it doesn't last. But no, not the EVs. They're cheap because China has vertical integration. That's why they're so cheap. And we don't have vertical integration in America. And that's part of the reason EVs are so expensive. That's why you see the government, they come and put all these subsidies and tax credits if you buy an EV, because inherently they know this is way too expensive for the average American. When Trump put tariffs, it raised our prices on goods. Yeah, I don't agree with the tariffs, but I understand why he does it. He's doing it to protect like the union workers and to limit China's influence. But I think, it's a free market economy. I think, and Americans, we can get a cheaper, better, EV. We should be able to have the opportunity to do that. And it's free market. So now it's like, okay, compete with that. It's also why I don't like the EV mandate. Like, okay, we're going to ban production and new sale of new, gas powered cars so we can have an all EV. No, just make the electric cars undeniably better. And then the consumer will naturally phase out the gas car. It's like there's a reason why people aren't on horse and buggy anymore. It's not because we banned horse and buggy. It's because the internal combustion engine is far better, far more efficient. It was phased out by the market. But it's like they're trying to force us. They're trying to force us into EVs. I mean, that's a whole different thing, though. They just showed Diddy. That's crazy. I didn't see that. Trump or Harris, we will all be bound by the development program. Enjoy life while you can. Yeah, I agree. Y'all think Trump's foundation shade darker than Kamala's? What does that mean? And HUR, I don't know if you've seen earlier, I responded to the chat that I said I would get to later that you left. You said who's going to base their vote based on a debate? And I said a lot of people. And I said Kamala or Trump could actually, I don't plan to vote for either, but if they said something that I felt or put forward a policy that I felt that they were earnest about and mattered to me, I would consider voting for them. I'm not considering voting for any of them. I'm just watching this as a spectator. I have no dog in this fight. But a lot of people could be convinced. Oh, we're back. Oh, here we go.
We're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here
Kind of
again,
wish we still rode horses.
David Muir
Yeah, shout out to
and
horses.
Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements.
closing,
Vice
yeah.
President Harris, we begin with you.
We're at the end, y'all.
So I think you've heard tonight
Subscribe if you haven't already.
very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward.
Well, y'all were both focused on the past, to be
But
honest.
we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living.
I just don't believe anything she says. I don't know why. I just don't
what we
believe
can
her.
do together. That is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect
come with
our
the platitudes.
fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim
And your
or a
donors,
witness,
too.
are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you.
Does
and is not
anybody in the
putting
chat
themselves
believe her?
First.
Does anybody just feel like
to be a
she's
president for all
earnest?
Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
I just don't believe
President
anything
Trump?
she says personally.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that.
Yeah,
she's
why
gonna do
haven't
all
you
these
done it?
Wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack, we're not going to take fossil fuel, we're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline.
I
We're
agree.
being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President
police
Trump,
immunity.
thank
I would have
you.
liked to hear them
And
talk about
is
that,
our
too.
ABC News
All right,
presidential
cool.
debate from
Then I'll get to the
here in
chats.
Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all
Great
over the
job,
world.
moderators. Moderators did a great job.
ABC News.
Moderators did a great job. I feel like they because in the Trump-Biden debate, it was a lot of cutting off and then like the moderators were a lot more hard line. This time, I think they did a great job, both of them. They let each person respond at least once. If someone says something, okay, you respond once. No, you can't respond to his response. You can't rebuttal his rebuttal. We're keeping it at one rebuttal and then we're moving on. But then they let him speak. I don't remember a time where anyone got cut off. Where and what I mean by that is the moderator asks a question, what about Israel-Palestine, or what about the economy? And then the candidate, either Trump or Kamala, is speaking, but then they say, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 5 seconds. This is what they usually do in debates. Like they're like, you have 1 minute, then okay, you have 30 seconds. As they're talking, I don't think they did that at all, which I think is fine. Even though I do think Kamala kind of speaks in run-on sentences. Like she makes her point. Like she starts very well, but then she's kind of just runs and starts falling into these platitudes. And platitudes. A remark or statement, especially one with a moral content that is used too often to be interesting or thoughtful. I think that perfectly describes, like, you made your point. You don't have to like then fall into these platitudes. But whatever. In terms of who did better, I don't think this debate was convincing enough to convince anybody to vote one way or another. I think we spent way too much time on old stuff, January 6th, Afghanistan, and it's not like the candidates went there because Trump just went on a rant about January 6th again, or Kamala went on a rant about Trump's lawsuits. No, these were questions that were asked by the moderators. I hope this is the last time we have to hear about these types of questions. Afghanistan, all this other stuff, Jan 6, cool. We spent too much time on it though. A lot of people in the chat were agreeing with me, like, yo, how about, the economy is huge. There's not one question that you can ask about the economy that's going to encompass everything. There's home ownership, which is a part of the economy. There's loans, which is a part of the economy. We didn't hear one question about the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve can help. They don't have direct control over inflation, but they can influence it depending on if they raise or cut rates. We didn't hear a question about unemployment. Like, there are so many parts of the economy, and this is what American voters say is the most important topic for them in this election, whether Republican or Democrat. Economy is like top 1, top 2. I don't know who has Israel-Palestine as their number 1. It's very important. But I don't know why we spend so much time on that. I don't know who has climate change as number 1, unless like you're 15, 16 years old. That's usually like the time where we are super concerned about that type of thing. But then as we get older, we like, what happened to global warming? Like, I think that all this stuff is happening. I think like the temperature of the earth is increasing, and I think our earth is negatively affected by drilling and fracking and things like this, which is why it was interesting to hear Kamala go back to being pro-fracking. So you can see she kind of admitted that she flip-flopped on some things, like without fully saying like, yeah, I flip-flopped. Like, yeah, she was against fracking, or she was for Bernie's proposal, which is no fracking. Then she went back pro-fracking because she's not going to win the states that she needs to if she's anti-fracking. But yeah, now she's pro-fracking. But that's an anti-liberal viewpoint to have. Like, I'm pro-fracking. But she knows that she's not going to win the states that she needs to if she is against fracking. She's not going to win Pennsylvania because a lot of people, that's their livelihood. Yeah, free Palestine in the chat. W for Palestine in the chat. I know foreign policy, I'm just speaking personally now. Foreign policy, I know it's very important. I'm just not at the point to where I can invest too much energy into foreign policy when the country is declining as quickly as it is. And when I say declining, I'm mostly speaking about the economy. I can only, like, it's honestly starting to piss me off a little bit. You see, we give this many billions to Israel, we give this many billions to Ukraine. It's like, yo, our own country is, like, have you seen some of our airports in America? Like, our airports are like dog-ish. Like, we're not gonna cuss on this one because this one is a family live stream. It's not a hip hop live stream. Our airports are dog-ish. Wasn't there like a bridge that just collapsed like less than a year ago? Like, while people were on the bridge in their cars, infrastructure, like. So that's why I said during the live stream, like, I don't really, obviously I'm more Palestine than Israel. I don't think Israel even, I understand the arguments they make, but no Israel argument to me is ever going to convince me, because I fundamentally think that they should not even be there in the first place. They were gifted Israel. Sure, there were Jewish people living there before World War I, but and going back hundreds of years ago, but in the capacity that they're there now, I just fundamentally believe they shouldn't even be there. So any argument you make to me about, even though it could make sense where we are today, Hamas, there was a peace plan, it was rejected, this and that, two-state solution, nothing is ever going to hit for me because I just fundamentally think they shouldn't be there in the first place. But that's neither here nor there. I say all that to say I don't really care about Ukraine or Israel at this point. Like, I think we should kind of step back. But obviously, foreign policy affects you in different ways. So pulling out of somewhere like Israel, it might affect our oil prices, and pulling out of Ukraine might affect our relationship with Europe. And then now we have Russia on a European front, and now that could be the next couple steps towards a world war. I get it. See what they're saying in the chat. I already know who I'm voting for. I want to get to HUR's chat. He says, I heard you. I said, why would you consider voting for an insurrectionist? So I'm dumb, so let me look up insurrectionist. Someone who participates in an insurrection. A violent uprising against an authority or government. I'm not necessarily, this is gonna sound crazy. I'll say it this way instead. I was looking up the definition. I don't know if you guys can see that. Insurrectionist, a violent uprising against an authority or government. I don't think, okay, so maybe you cross out violent, because, just depending where you are. If your government is violent towards you, I mean, how do you respond to that other than violence? But taking the violent part out, I don't think uprising against authorities is necessarily bad. Sometimes it's necessary. That's why the government is accountable to the people. Like, if you're not never going to uprise against them, or at least hold them accountable, then why would they ever be accountable to you? So you said, why would you consider? I said I would consider voting for Trump if he were to say something that, or hold a policy position that I truly felt mattered to me. And that truly mattered to me. That's basically it. But he doesn't. Like, the one thing he could probably sell me on, or either one of them, Kamala or Trump, is the student loan forgiveness thing. And then fixing that whole system. Not just forgiving student loans, but then like making efforts to fix it. But neither of them, that's an issue that matters to me. So that, like, for some people, they'll never vote for Trump because of the abortion thing. And I get it. But abortion's not really this is going to sound selfish, but it doesn't affect me. And so it's not really a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaking point if someone's pro-choice or pro-life to me in terms of who I vote for, because it's just doesn't affect me. Now, for you, it might. If you're a woman, now, it affects you. It's directly related to your health care. So yeah, for you, it may be a deal breaker. For me, it's not going to sway me either way. But I will say I'm more pro-choice, just because I don't think the government should be like this far deep into your life, into your body, and telling you what you can and can't do. So I guess on that grounds, I'm more pro-choice. But again, it's not something that's going to sway me. Now, if they were to speak about a topic that could sway me, like something about the economy, something that I actually believe what they're saying. I don't believe what Kamala says a lot of the time. I believe what she said about abortion tonight, though. That's like her best talking point. But I would consider either way. But like I said earlier, I don't think this debate is going to sway anyone. I think it was pretty much neck and neck. I think each one, there's nothing surprising about this debate to me. Now, some people, if you had low expectations for Kamala, you might say, okay, she won by a hair. But I fully expected, you can see in my other videos on my channel, I fully expected Kamala to have at worst, a decent debate, because I've seen her debate before. Yeah, she's not the greatest speaker at times, but once she gets in her bag, she was a lawyer for crying out loud. Once she gets in her bag, she can hold her own, bro. Like, we've seen her debate, in the 2016 primaries. It's un-American to even consider someone who tried to overthrow the government. Well, that's getting into the whole January 16. Was it an insurrection? Was it not? Which, again, I already said I'm tired of them speaking about it, so I'm definitely not going to speak about this. Trump wants to put more tariffs in the future. Inflation would be insane. She's going to flip-flop more than John Kerry. Let's see where we at. You're not just voting for a candidate, you're voting for an entire administration. Biden administration has been very effective. Well, although there are things that the Biden administration have been done that are good, like the things about healthcare, we didn't really get to hear these guys talk about that. I mean, we heard Kamala mention it, which was great. But yeah, you're voting for an entire administration. The thing is, HUR in the chat, you're going to be hard pressed to convince any average American that the Biden administration was more effective than Trump's, simply because the economy, like literally everything has gotten worse. won't say everything, but everything the average American is going to see. Gas prices, food prices, whether this is Biden's fault or not, it almost doesn't matter when it comes to the average person who's voting, because we see the face, we see the president. So you're going to be hard pressed to convince people that the Biden administration was better than Trump's, because everyone's not going as granular as we are and looking at, you know, the very specific things that were done. Most of what people know is the economy was this way during Trump. My 401k was this way during Trump. Now it's this way during Biden. And that's how it's broken down for most people. But yeah, SB said, why didn't they talk about police immunity? I would have liked to hear them speak about that. The U.S. is hated because of your gun policies, bro. I don't know what that comment's about. It was more organized compared to the previous debates for sure. Yeah, and Trump was a lot more, he wasn't as deranged in the other debates. I think maybe someone on his team told him, like, yo, you got to scale it back a little bit, because he was comparatively, like, Kamala Harris was the more animated one during this debate in terms of the faces, and he actually told her to be quiet a couple times, like, I'm speaking. She didn't have to do that to him. He was just very tame, it seemed, and she was the more animated one, like kind of speaking as he's speaking a couple times. Debates are just for clip farming. I don't agree, HUR. There are people, debates, it's the reason why we have swing states. Those swing states, the Electoral College, most states are going to do what they do. California, New York, blue. Mississippi, red. The undecided voters. This is who the debate is for. That's why I said earlier, I don't think this debate is going to swing anyone anyway. This debate didn't convince anybody. It didn't convince a Republican to, I'm going to vote for Kamala. And it didn't convince a Kamala supporter, like, I'm going to vote for Trump. And it didn't convince an independent, I'm going to go to either side. Why didn't they ask how she became the nominee with 0 votes? Or why she has only done 1 interview? I would just rather hear policy questions than that. But that is a good point. Trump speaks in mock and disparagement, not logic. She sounds like Bush Cheney on foreign policy. Yeah, and Kamala Harris I just don't know how well this is going to play with Democrats, because now she's pro-fracking, but at the same time she's pro-environmental. But then you're pro-fracking, and then also the Israel-Palestine thing. She said many times, like, oh, I support Israel. Israel has the right to defend itself. That doesn't go well with young Democrats. I'm telling you, it just doesn't. Try to end the war. That's the end of the goal. Trump sees as the game. If you're planning to vote for Trump, read Project 2025. I guess I do need to read it. It seems like a scare tactic to me, Project 2025. And if you're black in America, like, bro, Project 2025, like, the scare tactic is probably not going to work on you, because, like, come on, bro, we've been through way more stuff. If you got someone pregnant, it impacts you indirectly. That's Rabia is talking about abortion, which you are correct. Yeah, if I got someone pregnant, the abortion topic would impact me directly. But for me, I've never been in that situation. So it's just not if I've been in a situation where I needed to, have access to abortion, yeah, I would feel more strongly about it. But I just don't feel any type of way about it. But I do lean more pro-choice. I wouldn't say I lean, like, if I will vote pro-choice 10 out of 10 times, but it's not something I feel strongly on. It's not going to sway me towards one candidate versus another. It's not. I don't know if that's immoral to have that belief, but it's just not. Everything has gotten worse. It's almost like the system is rigged from the start. Yeah, I wouldn't say everything, because I don't want to use the catch-all term, but yeah, most things have gotten worse. God forbid people actually look into anything besides what shows up on their For You page. Yeah, well, we gotta understand, HUR, a lot of people most Americans, they're working 40 hours a week, if not more, and they're raising a family. The idea that they're gonna go and then read deeply into each politician, especially if this were a primary, not just 2 people, if there were an actual primary where you have 6, 8, 10 candidates running, the idea that people are just gonna go and research and then look up these interviews it's not gonna do it. An American who wants to be informed, who's living, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, raising a family, with a mortgage and all this other stuff going on, taking the kids to practice, if they want to get informed, they're going to watch the debate. So that's why I think it's so important that they speak about policy in these debates and not about old stuff. Trump wasn't backing down. Yeah, he wasn't backing down. The man was so mad he talked about Afghanistan. Well, I think the moderators asked about Afghanistan. They asked about that. And they asked about January 6th. They're asking, like, the question. It's got to be better next time. Although I think the moderators did a great job. I don't think the moderators came up with the question. I think a team came up with questions and then they picked moderators. The questions have got to be better. It's understandable you're a guy. Yeah, you know. So, but I also understand, so I'm glad you can be logical in this, Rabia. But I understand why for women it would be a make or break decision. I totally understand. We're hungry, but they're belly full. The structure is set. You'll never change it with a ballot poll. I think you can change a lot of things with a ballot poll. I think you can change a lot of things. More so local elections. If you get involved in your midterm elections, you'll be surprised at how much you can change with a ballot. It's like everyone who's so angry about abortion. Like, people think Roe v. Wade, like Trump taking away Roe v. Wade, banned abortion. It didn't ban abortion. Trump taking away Roe v. Wade did not ban abortion. It let the states decide. So, although Dirty Bubble, I do hear you, and thanks for contributing to the chat, there's a lot you can change with the ballot poll. The people who are for Roe v. Wade who live in these red states where abortion is illegal, they can change that with a ballot poll. They can literally vote their midterm elections, put someone else in charge, and literally almost overnight, we won't say overnight, within a couple months of that person being in office, you will have abortion legal in your state. That's something you could change with a ballot poll. Hold on, where am I? Facts. That's just facts. So there's a lot you can change. Thanks for pronouncing my name correctly. It's incredibly rare. You're welcome. Trump's microphone was originally going to be muted. What happened to that? Well, they muted both microphones, didn't they? Because there were times where Kamala was trying to speak while Trump was speaking, but we couldn't really hear her because her microphone was muted. I think they muted both mics when the other person was talking. I haven't seen the whole debate, but I'm seeing people say that Harris cooked him. I wouldn't say she cooked on abortion, but then Trump responded with that's actually going to be a separate clip that I'll post to my channel. I think that was the most strong part of the debate, the abortion topic, and that's when Kamala kind of woke up. People are going to say Kamala Harris cooked him because they just have very low expectations for her to begin with. They felt like she couldn't talk, she's scared. Like, I've seen her debate before, so I didn't have that same point of view, like she's scared. So if you have very low expectations, yes, you're going to feel like Kamala did very good because you had low expectations to begin with. Trump was fuming. He couldn't call Kamala the B word. I didn't see Trump fuming at any point of this debate. He was, compared to every single other Trump debate I've seen, this ain't the debate to call him fuming. He was kind of laid back. He seemed very tame to me for Trump. Top 5, is it true Kamala cooked him? I don't think Kamala cooked him. Like I said, I think the debate was like this. It was neck and neck. No one got swayed. If you're an undecided voter, if you're in a swing state, this debate did nothing for you. It was just entertainment. You don't know. If you're honestly thinking, like, my vote can honestly be changed, and I'm watching this to see who I'm going to sway towards, this debate didn't do that for you. The moderators did a good job controlling thing. I agree. Thought it was going to be a more strict mute. What you want them to just completely mute Trump? Like, they did well. When one person's talking, they muted the other mic. And then Trump, I didn't hear him one time try to cut her off while she was talking, which is strange for a Trump debate. He cuts everything off midway. We need Charlamagne and Breakfast Club to ask Kamala if she carries hot sauce everywhere. Well, y'all saw me in my other video. I said she's going to come out with the black accent. Hey, what's up, y'all? I'll eat fried chicken. I said that. And then what did she do? She came out with a black accent. Like, bro, you're already black. You don't got to do the black accent. Just speak how you speak. What she said? Thank a union member. She's talking like she a pastor. Thank a union member. I told you. She going to come out with the hot sauce next. I guarantee it. She's going to mention hot sauce. Fried chicken, or she's going to do the electric slide. Bank on it. At some point, and in between now and the election, she's gonna fucking do the electric slide. Trump was on point with this, with his responses. Actually, it seems like he was trying to come across more reasonable. Trump seems sad a lot of the time there. Yeah, I can see why people would think he seemed sad, because he didn't seem like as animated as he normally is. Yeah, no one converted in debate. Facts.
Facts.
Will Lakers said it was because she was a woman. He's not going to spaz her on like that for real. Will Lakers, I invite you to go watch the 2016 presidential debate. Trump spazzed on Hillary. And Hillary actually won at least one of those debates, I thought. I thought Hillary Clinton won that last debate. But he spazzed on Hillary. I think he's not spazzing on Kamala Harris because his team is telling him this is not a good look. And we need these swing states. Remember when Trump won the election in 2016, he lost the popular vote. More people voted for Hillary, but Trump won those key states. Those key 3, 4, 5, 6 states, he won them, so he won the election. He's thinking like, I need to get these undecided. This race is too close. I need to get the undecided voters. I thought he'd say his answer muted, then the mods would repeat it. Nah, yeah, you're tripping. Hillary gonna bring the hot sauce out her first to put in Kamala's tub of greens. They told him to stick to the plan, right? But he was rattled, so he allowed her to escape from answering the real questions. I didn't get that any of them were rattled. I didn't get that. I didn't get that Trump was rattled. I didn't get that Kamala was rattled. It was literally exactly what I expected, minus the 20 minutes of questioning about old stuff. She did the hot sauce with the greens already. No way. His mouth was very pouty. It's always pouty. Rabio, you don't like hot sauce on greens? Well, you ain't black. As Joe Biden would say. You don't like hot sauce on collard greens? You ain't black. No, I'm kidding. 26 was like a lifetime ago. It was 8 years ago. 2 elections ago. Imagine Bernie once. Yo, Bernie would, he's too old to be doing that type of stuff. So anyways, that's the whole chat. I know I didn't get a lot of them that were way, way up in the beginning. I tried not to talk so much during the debate. And thank you to everyone who came back after, I guess it was a technical difficulties. It wasn't on my side. It was on YouTube because I'm connected to an Ethernet cord, so my Wi-Fi is fine. But yeah, technical difficulties. Regardless, thanks for everyone who's come back. I'm going to post a video tonight about what I think was the strongest, the best part of the debate. And I'm going to kind of repeat some of the things I said tonight right now about how I don't think it wasn't a win for anyone. If anything, I guess you could say it was a win for Kamala because it appears that a lot of people had such low expectations that they believe that performance was her cooking him. That's what because they had low expectations. But in terms of actual content and debate, I don't think, in the undecided voter, I don't think this ain't enough. So yeah, that's all we got. I didn't say I was live streaming either. I didn't come on and be like, yo, live stream. I just kind of popped out. So thanks for everybody for joining. And yeah, watch out on the channel for that video. I'm gonna post it. I'm gonna record it though. I'm not gonna use the same clip that I did when I was reacting to it. I'm actually